let's get to Davante Adams first. Walk me through what went on with that.
So the Jets and the Raiders have been talking for quite some time here, Jeane, because basically what had happened was...
When you say for quite a long time, when do you start? Like, we talking this summer, or are we talking...
Well, literally when they got Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the rumors have been circulating, and Rodgers had been not tampering about a potential reunion with Davante Adams for quite a while. But the Raiders were never willing to deal Adams. That was always the case. So when the Jets checked in shortly after acquiring Rodgers, they were told, look, Adams isn't for sale. When they checked in before the deadline last year, was Adams isn't for sale. When they checked in at the deadline, Adams isn't for sale. When they checked in this offseason, Adams wasn't for sale. What we've told you over and over and over again here on SNY, written things like that, is that once Adams was made available, once the Raiders were willing to listen to offers for him, the Jets were going to be first in line, and in all likelihood, they were going to get a deal done. The reason why Adams then went to the Raiders and said a couple weeks ago, early October, and said, look, I'd like to be dealt. The reason why it didn't happen in that moment was that there were some obstacles that they needed to overcome. First, draft compensation. The Raiders originally wanted a second-round pick and nothing less than a second-round pick. Actually, they wanted second-round pick and more for Davante Adams to get a deal done. They also wanted the acquiring team of Davante Adams to pick up and absorb the remainder of his base salary. So basically, not only give us a second, but then pay every penny for a 31-year-old wide receiver who's dealing with a hamstring issue at the moment. No team across the NFL, I was told, was willing to do that in that moment. So the Raiders waited. They waited. They were hoping other teams like the Buffalo Bills, like the New Orleans Saints, like some of these other organizations that are wide receiver needy, hoping that they would come in there, sweeten the pot, and do what they needed to do to get Davante Adams. That didn't happen. It basically came down to the Jets and only the Jets. And on Tuesday, or actually this happened kind of Sunday, it started to materialize, and then it's just going to be finalized here on Monday. This thing got across the
you're off a day.
So what was that, sorry, Jeane?
You said Sunday it kind of happened, but it kind of happened Monday, and then it happened on Tuesday, right?
Yeah, Monday, I'm sorry. Yeah, like I said.
I'm the same way. I get it. Sleep deprived.
My brain is literally like porridge mush right now. So we're fighting through this. Like, I think I'm more banged up at the moment than Aaron Rodgers' body is. But, yeah, so this thing basically what's going to happen is the Raiders, they conceded some and the Jets conceded some because the Raiders aren't going to eat the large portion of Davante Adams' base salary this year. The Jets are going to do that. That was something that management needed to be okay with and get the okay with from ownership, and that was something that happened this week, and so they moved forward with it. And then the Raiders are not going to get their second-round pick plus for Davante Adams. They're getting a conditional third-round pick that can become a second-round pick if Adams is a first- or second-team All-Pro. That is very unlikely to happen considering we're 6 games into the year. What could happen, though, is if he's on the roster for the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, that becomes a second-round pick, which obviously the Jets will be more than happy to part with a second-rounder if they're playing in either of those games.
Okay, so the trade's not official yet because it's pending a physical. Hamstring issue, do you think that's a problem? Do you think that's going to be a problem? Because Davante Adams hasn't played in the last couple of weeks because of a hamstring injury.
Yeah, no, the one thing that's always been pretty set here with Adams is that it was going to be a 2-week injury. It was a 2-week hamstring injury. It wasn't long-term. It was a real hamstring injury. This wasn't like Davante Adams was just like, oh, I don't want to play anymore. I tweaked my hamstring. Or we've seen players hold in. We've seen players all that. That was not it. That's not what we're looking at here. This was a real hamstring issue. But he is healed. And from what I was told, Jeane, by one Jet source, the hope is that as long as he passes this physical, which, again, there's no indication he's not, he's going to be on the field Sunday night against the Steelers.
Okay, so tell me what the wide receiver room now looks like. You've got Mike Williams, you've got Garrett Wilson, you have Alan Lazard, you now have Davante Adams. Is there enough balls to go around for everybody?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, Jeane, is that it's an interesting situation because that's the million-dollar question. And it's going to take a lot of people within the Jets building, and specifically talking about players, being unselfish. And it's going to really show you the high-character individuals that the Jets believe that they've acquired, the team-first players that they believe they've acquired. It's going to test that pretty strongly because there are going to be games now where Garrett Wilson does not see the lion's share of the targets. There are going to be games where Mike Williams is an afterthought. And I know that I'm sure the Jets will explore potentially trading him, but I talked to a source today inside the building And they did not give me any indication that Mike Williams is about to be on his way out. Like, the Jets like the fact that they're running 4 deep right now at receiver. And Mike Williams gives them something, that 50-50 big-bodied red zone threat that maybe necessarily the other guys don't, specifically with the 50-50, although we've seen Allen Lazard come up. But Allen Lazard's going to have games where he doesn't really get the receptions. Tyler Conklin is going to be an afterthought at times. If the passing game's working, maybe Braylon Allen or Breece Hall aren't the focal point. But if the Jets are winning football games, that should be all that matters. And I think that's what you're going to see. But I got a text from somebody within the Jets building today, and it was basically, how do we stop this group? You know, how do you stop Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson? And truthfully, Jeane, I don't necessarily know how you do. And it's because you now have spacing. You now have the ability to stress a defense. Free talked about the running game opening up, Jeane, because how do you not double Garrett Wilson? Well, now you have Garrett Wilson on one side. You've got Davante Adams on the other. Actually, believe it or not, Connor Rogers talked about this on the Jets pregame show. The best situation for the Jets would be Allen Lazard split wide, Davante Adams split wide, and Garrett Wilson in the slot. When the Jets first drafted Garrett Wilson, that's where they wanted him to play. I know everyone was like, oh, Elijah Moore's their slot receiver. No, it was Garrett Wilson. They believed Elijah Moore was going to be their Brandon Cooks, and Garrett Wilson was going to be their Cooper Kupp. He was going to be a dominant, more athletic Kupp in the slot. Now you can kind of allow him to go in there, feast in space, go down the seam, make plays in that position, and really take this offense to another level. And if you're worrying about all those receivers, well, now Breece Hall is running against an unloaded box, which is going to help the offensive line and all that stuff. So the receiving quad right now with all these guys, it is undeniably the most talented quartet I think I've seen the Jets since I've started covering this team, because they really do run 4 deep right now with 2 legitimate alphas in Garrett Wilson and Davante Adams.
Okay, on the outside looking in, it looks like this deal got done because the Jets lost to the Bills. But this deal was going to be done whether or not the Jets won or lost on Monday night. So why make this deal now, Connor?
Well, the deal happened. It's not because the Jets won or lost. I think a lot of credit, and I've been critical of him, but that certainly throughout his tenure here since I've been covering the team, and Woody Johnson's been overseeing it. But this happened because of Woody Johnson. I mean, this happened because Woody Johnson signed off on it. It doesn't happen if Woody Johnson doesn't sign off on it. And Jeane, I think the one thing that you and I've stressed here, and I'm going to continue to stress, is that Woody did not need to do this. Woody very easily could have looked at the state of the Jets and said, explain this to me. I've written the check for Allen Lazard. I've written the check for Mike Williams. I'm going to be writing a very large check for Garrett Wilson. I went out there and got you the quarterback. I'm paying for Tyler Conklin. We're running 2 deep at running back. We have Tyron Smith, who I signed, Morgan Moses, who I signed off on trading for and I'm paying, first-round pick and Elijah Vera Tucker. I paid John Simpson this offseason. I signed off on you guys drafting the center. We're running 2 deep at running back. You're now telling me I need to go out and spend another $11 or $12 million on another receiver just to have our offense function? What other team around the league has this many resources, financial, draft pick, free agent compensation, tied into their offense? The Kansas City Chiefs don't, and they look perfectly fine. The Philadelphia Eagles maybe, and they're dealing with their struggles right now. But why do I need to pay all this? How about you guys go out there and prove to me you can win with what I've already paid, which is substantially more than so many other teams, and then I'll give you more resources. Then I'll do it. That could have been Woody Johnson's stance. And it was Woody Johnson's stance for the large portion of this offseason. But what he saw with Jeff Ulbrich, with Todd Downing, with this team is a roster that he believes is the most talented that the Jets have had in quite a while. He told us that after he fired Robert Saleh. He easily could have sat on his hands. He easily could have gotten more pissed off after the loss to the Bills. Instead, he said, you know what? No, I'm signing off on the financial compensation. I'm signing off on the draft pick compensation. Davante Adams makes us better. And I think that says a lot about Woody Johnson in an all-in year, being willing to go all in. I truly, truly, genuinely believe that. And he deserves a lot of credit, because if it was not for Woody Johnson, this trade does not happen. And truly, Jeane, like it's a situation right now where it's an owner going all in for his team and for his organization. Because when you look at the Jets, they probably beat the Denver Broncos if they have Davante Adams. They probably beat the Minnesota Vikings if they have Davante Adams. They probably beat the Buffalo Bills last night if they have Davante Adams. Now, you can make the argument, yeah, other things cost the Jets those games, and they did. Other things absolutely cost the Jets those games. But if they had Adams, they win them. Woody Johnson saw the means to go out there and get Adams, and that's exactly what he did.